Okay,
Because you can't have an agenda item that isn't publicly stated.
I see. Okay, and then we just continue in the same format when we do executive session. This is essentially the agenda.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Only took me a couple of minutes, a couple of meetings, and I finally caught on.
Oh, yeah. And of course, if you have any questions, just ask. And
Thank you.
I notice our chair is undercover. She's incognito. Oh,
Oh.
there she is.
I realized at the same time that you did. Well, when I sign on to initiate the actual meeting, I have to sign on under Chris.
Right.
Lauren, I kept thinking that the game was getting rained out, and it kept not getting rained out.
Yeah.
I know the rain, the original forecast was for 6 p.m. rain.
Yeah.
And now it's 8:30. Although we did get a few drops here, nothing substantial.
There were some lightning bolts that I saw, like
Yeah.
probably out near Egg Rock.
Mm-hmm.
Evening, folks.
Hi. Good evening.
Hi, Kevin.
Hello. Oh, sorry about that. Hey, everyone.
Hi, Patty.
How is everyone?
I
Good.
think
How
we're
are you
all
doing?
I think we're all fine and warm.
Yeah,
I know.
warm.
Too warm.
That's for sure.
Thank God for air conditioning. That's all I have to say.
Kevin and I were exchanging conversations about heat. Neither of our wives like air conditioning.
Oh, I'm with them for sure. That's me.
You
Really?
prefer it hot?
I would rather sit here in this heat, which I am right now, than have like AC blaring. I just don't like the smell of it. It bothers me.
Yeah.
Oh.
My wife inappropriately and erroneously says she was born in a bayou.
I feel for you. That's rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it nice and cool. But
Yeah, me too. I like it
Yeah.
cool.
Like
Yeah.
wearing a jacket sometimes because it's so
Wonders of fans. I have a fan going now, so
How was
Yeah.
it in the school today?
it wasn't bad.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
No, today was the warmer of the 2 days, and
Was it-
I went around 5 or 6 times in each room, and it was okay. And tomorrow will be a little cooler, and then Thursday it'll be in the 70s.
wacky. New England
Yeah.
is wacky weather.
What's the old axiom? This is New England. If you don't like the weather, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Are we waiting for Beth?
Mhm. Do you ever get started or with that, even though, because we have a quorum?
Yeah,
Okay,
I think
it
so.
happened in the past.
okay,
Yeah.
all right, yeah, why don't we just get started? So I'll call the meeting to order at 7:03. And if everybody could rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance
to the flag of the
of the
United States
States
of America
America,
and to the republic
republic
for which it
for which
stands,
it stands,
one nation,
one
one
nation,
nation,
God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
free
with
and
liberty and
justice
justice
for
for all.
for
all.
We can review the minutes from the meeting of May 25th. If anybody has any comments regarding the minutes or discussion. Seeing no discussion, can I please have a motion to approve the minutes from May 25th?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from May 25th.
In a second,
I'll second.
Lauren. All in favor by show of hands? Ms. Sherlock, Ms. Karas, Ms. Dam, and myself.
Hey, Beth.
Hi, Beth.
Hey, team, sorry.
No worries. Mr. Parentazzi, I'll hand it over to you for the bills.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I sent a couple of different copies of the updated bill rolls. Chris actually sent one and I did. So the total this meeting is $76,483.04. They are extremely typical. What I do want to explain to the members of the school committee is that we have multiple months of bills from the Landmark School and from the town of Swampscott for special education services.
Mhm.
That's why there are both so many and why they're so high. But other than that, it's a month of bus cost. Craft Power is the company that maintains and repairs our automatic generator, electrical generator out back. And so we did need an electrical piece. And then the one of those bills is simply for their typical maintenance, and another one includes an electrical device that was outdated that they had to repair, and the part itself was over $500. The only other thing I think you may find interesting and that will help you in the future is Quadient Finance is our mail machine that prints our postage. So we pay them on an irregular basis based on our usage. And of course, our postage is less than the retail, stamp cost. Not dramatically less, but somewhat. And of course, it's much more convenient when to run multiple dozens of copies through. And then when they're picked up by the mailman, they're all, they're already stamped and they just go. And that's about it. So, Madam Chair, I would respectfully ask that you entertain a motion from a member of the committee to approve the bills for June 8th, 2021 at $76,483.04.
What is the Marblehead SPED account? Is that something that's, that we do separately for SPED? Or is-
Yes, we have a student who goes to school in Marblehead in
Oh,
one of
okay.
their substantially separate programs. But actually, I'm glad you asked that. That is a cost for an assessment. That's
Okay,
why it's that round number.
thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Parentazzi, why is it that we receive so many bills from Swampscott at one time? Is this the way that they're kind of catching up on their bookkeeping?
Well, Madam Chair, through you, it's actually a function of the end of the fiscal year. In a typical year, excuse me, 2 months ago, we would not have 2 and 3 months of bills. They would simply wait till after the services were given and then bill us. But this town of Swampscott has 2 months of bills, May and June, in this bill roll, and Landmark actually has 3 months. So the $5,100 is for April. The $63.99 is May, and then the $31.99 is June. Special education tuitions are the one of a very, very short list of costs that you can actually prepay with public funds.
Okay.
Typically, let's say we're going to have the rooftop unit done. Let's say we're going to do that. And the contractor typically gets, from any of us who are going to have a heating repair, they typically take 25 to 50% up front so they can buy the materials, etc. We can't do that. So the contractor actually is out the money until at the end, with the exception of special education tuitions. So it's okay for us to pay June's tuitions. The reason it's also important is, of course, June 30th closes the books on the fiscal year, and you don't want to go from fiscal year 1 to fiscal year 2. Now, we do have a little bit of leeway. Typically, we can pay by law any fiscal year 1 bills or invoices in fiscal year 2 in one of two ways. We can either pay them before July 15th of year 2, or we can encumber the funds. And I have a form that goes to the accountant, the town accountant, and say, for example, we're going to have a repair done and the contractor can't get to it until July. We can encumber those funds from fiscal year 1, even though they're being done in fiscal year 2, and it will be paid in fiscal year 2, but it will be paid with fiscal year 1 money. They're the only two ways.
Thank you. That makes sense.
Any other questions?
I'd be happy to make a motion to approve the invoices dated 6/8/21 for a total of $76,483.04.
And I'll second that motion.
All in favor? Ms. Sherlock, Ms. Dam, Ms. Anderson. Patty, did you forget? All right, sorry, Ms. Karen and myself. Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. We can move on to old business, Mr. Parentazzi. COVID.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you authorized last meeting, almost immediately after the meeting, the value and the wisdom of your authorization took hold, because within a couple of days, the COVID guidelines and protocols by all of the interested parties changed. So in your packet labeled item 4A, you have the a shorthand version, and I want to thank Cheryl Delicio, who is our COVID and other health area expert, for putting this together for us. So outdoors students don't have to wear masks, even if they cannot maintain social distance. Adults do have to wear a mask if they cannot maintain social distance outdoors. Indoors, we are continuing to go to the end of the year with both students and staff wearing masks. One of the big differences is that if there is a COVID-19 case, the contact analysis is different now. Students are not determined to be close contacts unless they are in close proximity indoors for extremely long periods of time. And adults, because we have masks on, we are not considered, would not be considered to be a close contact. That's a change. In months past, it didn't matter if you had a mask on or not. So this summarizes it. We have had the new protocols in the newsletter on a regular basis. We have also wrinkled it a little bit. So, for example, when kids arrive at school, they can't, by the way, anybody can wear a mask if they want to, anywhere, obviously. So when students arrive to school, we don't, their parents and they don't have to have masks on, which is a change. And then what we do is we ask them to, students to put their masks on as they enter the building, as the line begins to move. That way we give them a little bit more normalcy. And that's also consistent with the guidelines.
Was there anything sent out to the parents about close contact and the changes in that regard? Only because people still may be following the old guidance, and I don't know if it just applies to in school versus out of school. I mean, because essentially everywhere now, nobody's wearing masks.
I believe it was, but I will double check.
Okay.
The close contact analysis and questioning typically came from the public health nurse and our nurse,
Yeah.
and we're not doing it. So, but I will check.
Okay.
Yeah, and well, any other, Madam Chair, through you, anyone else have any questions? Or
No, thank you.
you're very welcome, and again, thanks to Cheryl. I do want to move right into B, 4B, COVID-19 update. The update is one of the most negative ones I've ever given. We have no cases, no quarantine, no close contact, no isolation.
Nice.
It's really
That's
the
about
most
it.
positive one.
That's about as positive as a totally negative report could ever be.
It's great. Thank you, Mr. Parentasi.
You're very, very welcome. So I think we're going to focus on keeping what we have in place. The kids have been fantastic. I have to tell you, Mr. Andrews may have a different view of this, but today was real hot and I didn't see any whining, complaining about the masks. Now we did give them breaks, obviously, and you know, we made sure they went to the sunny side of the building. But our kids have been phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal.
Amongst ourselves, we are complaining a bit about the masks, though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I imagine.
Yeah, it can be harder for adults sometimes.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's hard in the heat.
Yeah.
We're almost there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hopefully these are the last few hot days for the school year, I think.
Yeah.
Tomorrow
be
should be better, right?
That would be lovely.
Yeah, thank you to all the staff that toughed it out yesterday and today. Thank you very much.
Yeah. I just didn't see the value of,
Yeah.
Yeah,
interrupting our very established patterns. I mean, if the kids were really, really hot, we have things here that we can do.
Mhm.
makes
We have,
sense. Yeah,
we have a refrigerated water fountain. We have ice machines. We could take care of kids. And I'm not aware of any student who had to go to the nurse because of the heat.
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah.
So,
No.
but the
And
We are a
teachers,
bit cooler as well.
yeah, it also helps to be out here on the island.
Right.
It is a couple of degrees cooler.
I drove from the Cape last night at about 9 p.m. When I left my house, it was 64 degrees outside.
Wow.
When I hit the bridge, it was 74, and when I hit Somerville, it was 88.
Mhm.
So there's it shows you the water influence.
Yeah.
What we need is a couple more miles. The causeway, if we were 3.5 miles instead of 2,
Mhm.
it'd be even better.
I think what we can be grateful for is that with the adjustment to the mask policy, people when they were outside, if they were vaccinated especially, they're able to take off their masks. And I think that makes a huge difference when we're,
Yeah,
looking
and
for-
even if the protocols were what they used to be, what we would have done is have them go outside, have the mask off, but stay 6 feet apart.
Mhm.
Right.
So, we would have taken care of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks to all the staff members. There's a couple of them, 3 of them on the meeting. They did a fabulous job.
Thank you very much.
So, Madam Chair, if you wish, I can move right on to 4C.
Sounds great.
So last week, I met with the president and vice president of the NTA. And I also had a phone conference with the director of the Nahant Public Library. Both the NTA through their president and vice president, and the public library through their director, are in favor of this agreement as it's written now. The change between this draft and the original one and the second draft is that this clearly identifies in more direct language the responsibility for our students being ours when they're in our school, and that the librarian, who's technically the children's librarian, who is technically an expert, would have to answer to our principal. And I don't mean answer in terms of supervision. I just mean, putting things together, what the program is. There's not a complete autonomy. The last 2 versions weren't as clear as this one. This one also has in goals, with the approval of the principal, the NPL staff will be available to collaborate. So the other one was stronger and seemed to indicate that it was at the discretion of the public library staff rather than our staff. I just noticed grammatically I have to fix that 3rd paragraph in goals. I just saw that.
Oh, okay.
With the approval of the JES principal, the NPL staff will be available. I apologize for that.
It looks great. Thank you. And thank you to all involved for all your work on this. Hopefully it'll be mutually beneficial.
So, Madam Chair, the choice that you and the members of the school committee have are to either approve this evening or wait for me to get information that the library board has approved it first. It's totally up to you.
So far it's been discussed with the NTA and the head librarian, is that what you said?
Yes, the director of the library.
The director, okay. Do any of the school committee members have any questions?
No.
Suggestions, comments?
I personally think it would be fine for us to approve it so that then if the library finds it also agreeable, then it could be actionable.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree with Lauren.
Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the cooperative agreement between Johnson Elementary School and the Nahant Public Library?
I'll make a motion to approve the cooperative agreement between the Johnson Elementary School and the Nahant Public Library.
Madam Chair, the only thing I would suggest is there's 3 versions of this floating around.
So this is the one from
if you-
June 4th, 2021.
Yeah,
June 4th, 2021.
Thank you.
I'll
Thank you.
second the motion.
Ms. Sherlock? Any discussion? All in favor of approving the collaborative agreement by show of hands? Ms. Sherlock, Ms. Karas, Ms. Dam, Ms. Anderson, and myself. Thank you. Mr. Parentasi, you can move on with the solar energy project and LED lights update.
thank you very much. Well, today there was a new development.
Oh,
I got an email from one of the town councils who said that the town meeting must approve the solar project PPA. Now, that is very different than the information I have had for weeks, but obviously coming from the town council, that's the opinion that matters. I informed Solette today by email of this change. Mr. Barletta and I were both surprised. We were of the opinion that since there wasn't a borrowing article, that it would be handled like any other rental or lease. But obviously, this one's different. It could be because of the magnitude of it. It could be because of the length of it. It's 20 years. So this is now on the trajectory to be at either a fall town meeting for town approval, or if there's no fall town meeting, then for the next annual town meeting.
that's a long
Okay.
way.
Yeah.
It's disappointing, but I guess if that's the legal avenue we have to take, then.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, people use the axiom humorously, but the axiom that if you have an attorney and you don't take their advice, that's foolish, is in my opinion, in the public sector is the right way to go. Now, we could seek a second opinion from a different council, but town council is the one the town relies on, and it's my opinion that we should also rely on that person's opinion.
Are there any steps that we can take to make sure that we can move forward, somewhat quickly after the town meeting? Like, is there any other steps that we should be looking to get together?
Yes.
Mhm.
Great question. One that I have thought of as soon as I got the bad news. So what I'm going to do is ask Mr. Barletta to have town council review all the documents that I have in my portfolio, so that once town meeting happens, they can be signed and we move forward ASAP. I have already contacted the town council because the town council offered to write the agreement. And I informed them that we will be using the power option agreement, which is a state approved agreement that is the responsibility of the nonprofit. Power Option is the company. And that will save the town considerable time from town council, because the document will already be written and the town council simply has to review it rather than write it.
Thank you for doing that.
You're very welcome. But just to make sure that we're on the same page, I will have to go through Mr. Barletto to have that happen, because the attorney works for the town, not for us.
Mhm.
But I don't anticipate any issue. And then, Madam Chair, would you like to take the lead on item 4F, or would you like me to?
Oh, were you going to skip over E, the fiscal year 21 budget update?
Oh, I put the check on that too soon. Thank you very much. The fiscal 2021 budget is solid. We will have enough money to pay all of our bills, to actually pre-order some things that Mr. Andrews loves to get in-house prior to the summer. The school nurse put together a big order so that she'll have a lot of her materials in-house for the beginning of the school year. We will be, if you think back when I was talking about encumbering, we will be encumbering certain costs for fiscal 2022 and use 2021 funds. They would include the rooftop unit, which is about $40,000. They would include the MASC dues, the MASS, the School Committee Association, and the Superintendent Association dues, and the Massachusetts Partnerships for Youth dues. So we'll utilize fiscal 21, encumber those funds, pay for them in July. With the exception of the rooftop unit, that we'll pay for that whenever it's done, if we move forward. And I'll give you a report on that in a few seconds. But we're in really good shape financially. Madam Chair, I will be asking the school committee to approve some line item transfers at the next meeting. Just as a reminder, that means that, we're expended in line 101 and under expended in line 102. So we move money from 102 to 101. It's not a bottom line issue. It's a line item issue.
Okay. We can move on to item 4F, which is in your packet. The memorandum of agreement between the town of Nahant and the town of Swampscott. This we had discussed previously, and there was some grammatical edits that we made, and it includes the financial agreement for fiscal year 2023 through fiscal year 2027. We sent our version with, the suggested edits to the Swampscott School Committee, and if anybody has any questions about the memorandum of agreement and financial agreement, we could discuss those now.
Madam Chair, if I may, I recommend that you give every consideration to having two different motions. One for the agreement for educational services between the town of Nahant and the town of Swampscott, and one for the MOA, because they are totally different types of documents. And they both require a roll call vote.
Okay, so the first document in the packet is the agreement for educational services. And again, this is in your packet, and we've reviewed it before.
Yeah, Madam Chair, if I could, I want the members of the school committee to know that the chair just received this afternoon. And we immediately distributed it to you, and the Swampscott School Committee is meeting tomorrow evening, so the timing is actually perfect if you're comfortable with it. We have discussed this in the past. The only changes in this document are the ones that we have previously discussed, and they were technical, the date,
Grammatical.
grammatical, periods, and in paragraph 2, the date 2026-27, which was erroneously 21-22. Nothing else has really changed.
Yeah, they didn't make any additional changes upon sending it back to us.
And of course, the name of the current chair of the school committee has been corrected.
I'm happy to make a motion to approve the agreement for educational services between the town of Nahant and the town of Swampscott as included in our packet from our school committee meeting, June 8th, 2021.
Second.
All in favor, by show of hands? Ms. Dam, Ms. Anderson, Ms. Karas, Ms. Sherlock, and myself. And then the second document is the memorandum of agreement between the Swampscott School Committee and the Nahant School Committee. And it's an addendum to the 2022-27 contract. If there's any questions about that document or discussion.
Madam Chair, I have one. If you remember the notes that we worked on, the title should be 2023 to 12-27.
Oh, yeah.
So why don't we just change that by hand, retitle it in the notes, so we don't have to go through this all again.
So when it's motioned, it would be the 2023 to 2027 as edited.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm happy to make a motion to approve the memorandum of agreement between the Swampscott School Committee and the Nahant School Committee addendum to the 2023 to 2027 contract as included in our packet from our school committee meeting, June 8th, 2021.
And I'll second that motion.
Thank you. All in favor of approving the memorandum of agreement? Ms. Dam, Ms. Karas, Ms. Anderson, Ms. Sherlock, and myself. So what I'll do is we can send over just a note to the school committee that we approved it with just that edit.
Super. Yeah, and that would be great. And I want to thank the members of the school committee who were on the negotiating team. The conditions of the 5-year agreement are extremely fair and good for all the families and students.
Great. Mr. Parentazzi, would you like to talk about the facilities update?
Certainly. We are beginning to allow our facilities to be used outdoors. We are going to maintain our prohibition about utilizing our facilities indoors for the next 2 weeks, just as a precaution. And because it's so late in the school year, it's good weather. I just don't think it's worth taking a chance. And I think it would be better to open up the gym and the interior of the building for community use and for nonprofit use uh, at the beginning of the next school year rather than at the tail end, the last 2 weeks of this school year. And we do have the PTA utilizing our facilities outdoors for a couple activities. And we do have the one thing that's a little bit different this year is because of COVID-19, we're making sure the nurse and the public health nurse are on the first line of approval.
Is the school building ever typically used over the summertime?
No.
No, okay.
We would allow the outdoor use, the facility, the fields, the playgrounds, et cetera, if someone asked. But the interior of the building, particularly this year, is going to be basically torn apart.
Mhm.
Because if you remember, last summer, we moved everybody around
Mhm.
so that we would have the appropriate physical distance and, you know, the larger number of the classes with the largest number of students got the biggest rooms, et cetera, et cetera. Well, we're going to put this summer, we're going to put the school back together
Okay.
the way it has historically been, with a couple of little wrinkles.
So I think, you know, in general, as we've said in other meetings, we continue to, as a committee, we've tried to establish a pattern of following the guidelines and not deviating from them and trusting our public health officials and the CDC to tell us what is safe and what to do. And so I'd be in favor of continuing that pattern of behavior and, you know, adjusting any policies that, or any adjustments, correct, kind of going back to any policies that we used to have that currently fit, you know, the safety model being advocated for by the CDC. So I think adjustments to our facilities in line with that are fine with me.
Any other questions for Mr. Parentazzi?
Okay. Madam Chair, would you like me to go to my report?
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. So the summer activity planning update, the 2 weeks of summer program are all set. We are fully staffed. Appointment letters have been issued to everyone and we are beginning to meet. So for example, our summer speech and language therapist is making an appointment with our school year speech and language therapist. There's really very little to say about it other than we still have 1 or 2 slots. If a parent at this point wants to sign up. And we're looking forward to it. It's going to be the biggest summer school we've had in quite a while.
Yeah.
And I want to thank the staff who have volunteered. We have a combination of Johnson Elementary School staff and professional educators from outside the school district.
I have a question about summer school. So obviously I know that the academics is included in the summer adventure program. Are there any other weeks of academic summer school for children that qualify for extended school year, or is that the entirety of the summer school program? Somebody was asking me and I realized I didn't know the answer.
Well, Madam Chair, it's interesting that you asked that at this exact time because the next agenda item.
Oh, sorry. I was stealing your thunder.
No, not at all. It's perfect. The next agenda item, 5B, is a unique program just started by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, funded by the federal government, and it's called Summer Acceleration Program. It's actually called the Fiscal 22 Summer Acceleration Academy Grant. And I put all of the paperwork in your packet because it's so different. it's unique. I've never seen anything like it in my over 10 years in public education. Uh, the federal government has given us $6,000. It and the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has delineated how that money is to be spent. So in your packet, the second page, the first one has the 5B at the upper right and has the $6,000 on it, which is what we're getting. And what I want you to see is where I put the wedges to draw your attention to it. The Acceleration Academy, the model for the week is actually laid out for us, and the stipend for the teachers is a required stipend. It's $3,000 for the week. Now that's typically much more than we would pay for summer work, but because it's federal, the typical sequence of law is that your contract must be followed unless state law or guidelines or federal law or guidelines supersede them, which in this case they do. And of course, it's to the staff benefit. I mean, typically we pay $33 an hour. Obviously, $3,000 a week far exceeds that. The one thing that this responsibility includes is all the prep work. So it's not just the 5 hours a day for 5 days, and this could involve, because if you look at the details of the academy model, there's going to be some pretty intensive prep work that would have to be done by a staff member on outside the academy time. So we have decided that the best time for this would be August 16th through the 20th. And it would be 8:30 to 12. You know what? I have the posting right in here, which is why I put it. 8:30 to 12:30. And the staff members would be there from 8 to 1. The cautionary tone that I have is that right now we only have one interested staff member. We need 2. So we'll go forward with the 1. And we will advertise and post it outside the district. There's still a couple of more days. The contract requires me to post positions for 10 days for internal candidates. I did talk to a staff member today who is considering it. So we may have our 2 staff members. And then that would, we have $6,000. We would have 2 teachers. Easy math. So that would be an academic acceleration. And if you read the model, it includes enrichment, which is, I like to use the word extension, in extending what the students already know. So that's on top of our 2-week programs.
So this Acceleration Academy model, so there would be 2, if we have it fully staffed, there'd be 2 cohorts of students.
Yes.
Classes, and each could be comprised of anyone, grades 1 through 6, or because K, they haven't had a chance to start school.
Yeah, that's a great question, Madam Chair, through you. What I would suggest is we wait and see another couple of days. We see if we have that second staff member. We then inform the parents that it's available in our typical electronic way. We see who's interested. And then we'll put together the most logical pattern. The groupings are limited by the grant. If you see, I think it's the seventh bullet down, class sizes are small, 10 to 12 students.
Yeah.
So we would have somewhere between 20 and 24 students slots available. If they were all primary, it would mean one thing. If they were all spread out, you know, along the grades, it would mean something else. Which is why the preparation time may be pretty intensive.
What if you have more interest than that volume of students?
Then we would have an option of finding more money,
Mhm.
which is potentially possible.
From the other ESSER grants, maybe? Could ESSER
Um,
grants be used to cover that?
we may be able to use ESSER 2 money
Mhm.
or ESSER 3. ESSER 1 is done. My real worry is staffing.
Mhm.
I anticipate more interest from parents, guardians, and students than we would have the staff. But that doesn't mean I'm right. Hopefully people will step forward. Maybe they're thinking about it. It's a great opportunity. Obviously, $3,000 is it's $600 a day. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
I'm surprised there's not more interest.
Yeah.
So if there's not enough staff to accommodate the interest, how are we going to go about prioritizing who gets the spots?
We would do it randomly, a
Okay.
lottery.
Uh-huh.
I would think that would be, since this is not for remediation, it's an academy. I don't think I mean, typically in summer school, I would prioritize it as the students who needed to be there the most would get priority.
Mhm.
But with this model, unless we wanted to fund a different model, which I can look into based on the interest, two things. We need to know what kind of a volume of student interest we have, August 16th through 20th, and then we have to know if we can staff it.
Mhm.
They're the two big variables. Frankly, this year, unlike in years past, the finances are not
That's the
critical
problem.
because we do have sources of funding.
It sounds like a great program. I can imagine it being fun and different, but also quite challenging for teachers if they do have multiple grade levels in front of them. So it'll be interesting to find out who's interested. And perhaps when that, survey of some sort is sent out to kind of query the level of interest, it could be made clear that this is to gauge interest, not necessarily to formally enroll.
Yeah.
No promise of a slot or anything like that. I think parents, sometimes myself included, can kind of read quickly, maybe see what we want to see. So if we just make it really clear that, it's to gauge interest and plan programming as opposed to, a promise of enrollment. I'm sure you'll do that anyway, but I just thought I'd bring it
No,
up
that's a good point.
as the kind of the consumer eyes looking at it.
Well, Madam Chair, through you, we know we're going to have a program because we have a staff member who wants to do it. We have the
Yep.
money, and I'm sure we'll have interest. How large it gets, that's a different issue.
Mhm.
That's what I mean, though, just to make sure people understand that it's not a promise of entry.
Right.
Mr. Pierantozzi, I wonder if you and I have a question for you and maybe for Mr. Andrews too. If you go outside of district, if you have to go outside of district for the second teacher, or if there's overwhelming demand and you open up a third you decide to open up a third section, if there's funds and you need to go, there isn't an interested teacher in Nahant, for Nahant Public, would there be any issue with going outside of the district with our current teachers and getting somebody in just to teach the summer academy? You anticipate any problems there?
Madam Chair, through you. The summer academy positions have been posted since May 27th internally. As long as I give 10 working days for staff members to establish their interest. And, you know, we've reminded them, Mr. Andrews and I have had private conversations with staff members. Then we have the right, the school committee has the right to hire people from anywhere. Interestingly, this grant actually says that we have to hire high quality people.
Right.
It's actually in the documentation.
Yeah, I read that.
And that the hiring has to be, they don't use the word competitive,
Mhm.
but that's what they mean.
Yeah.
So I don't believe there would be any problem. I would prefer that our own teachers
Of course.
use this really unique program to their benefit, but if they're not interested, they're not interested.
Right.
By the way, it's the same with any position. The rules are the same. Posted internally, they have 10 days. We sometimes even advertise it before the 10 days are up. As long as we don't take action before those 10 days are up, we're okay.
That's helpful. Thank you. And I'm not surprised. I mean, even with the money being really, really good, teachers are exhausted.
Yeah,
So we're all just trying to make it work.
Mhm.
it's totally understandable.
Yeah.
It's been a, you know, the phrase long haul means something in COVID, but you know, in terms of the workplace, it's been a long haul
Mhm.
for all of us, especially those of you in education and the medical field. It's been tough.
Do you think we should discuss at this meeting if we would like to allocate other funds to another position? Like, is that something that we would have to vote upon in order to move forward? I just wonder, after tonight's meeting, if you gauge interest from the community, if that's something we should have pre-planned.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I believe later in the meeting, you're going to authorize me to take certain actions this summer under 8A. And I believe that authorization would cover this. I think conceptually, my goal would be if we had 40 students who demonstrated interest, Mr. Andrews and I will try to find 4 teachers to teach 40 kids. That's going to be our goal. Unless the school committee doesn't want me to, which I can't imagine.
Okay. I just didn't want anything to hold you up on taking that next step.
I appreciate that. If I felt that there was something that would be getting in my way,
Yeah, let us know.
I'll bring it to you at the next meeting, but I don't think there is. We're
And so-
moving forward.
Just back to my original question. So for the summer programming, I know that the adventure camp is broken down into grade levels, but kids that qualify for extended school year, do they go for all 4 weeks? Like academically?
The students who qualify for extended program
Mhm.
have more services.
Mhm.
If you imagine a core time,
Mhm.
then we've extended the core time for the
Mhm.
kids who have special education extended program so that they can get their special education services and still participate in the core adventure camp.
Right.
And if I can add, Superintendent Parentozzi,
Please.
Madam Chair, the students who have academic services on their extended year service delivery will have it for 4 weeks.
Okay, that's.
So they're not going to have camp for 4 weeks,
Right.
but they'll
their
have maybe
academic.
morning math,
Yeah.
before camp starts. And so, yeah, so we have, it's
And
not as
we
much
have
as during camp, but
Right.
Right.
Perfect.
And we have a special education teacher specifically for those students.
Right. Yep.
Hired.
mhm.
And an OTPT, occupational therapy.
Mhm.
and a speech and language therapist, and we have a counselor. So all those services will be wrapped into those 4 weeks.
Great.
And those students can apply for the Acceleration Academy if they so choose.
It's a busy summer.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah, which is great. Madam Chair, the last item under the superintendent's report is the facility update. I without qualifying my behavior, I repeatedly contacted the company that was supposed to give me another bid for the rooftop unit. And this evening at 4:45, I got a response. So, however, the two bids that I have out of the four people I contacted, it's not apples and apples. So it's right now, it's really hard for me to tell which is best. So I've asked some more questions, but I will be asking the town accountant to encumber a significant amount of money to replace the heating unit on the roof, which heats the offices and the cafeteria and the stage. And it's going to be, in my opinion, when all the numbers shake out, it's going to be between $35,000 and $40,000. That's number one. Another item, and I communicated this, I sent a copy of this to the chair. I want to get a head start on the roof of the gymnasium for next year. What happens is MSBA gives you such a small window that it's like a crazy pace to get everything done in the window. So in March, they'll tell you that the special projects funding is now open, and in in June 15th, they'll tell you it's closed. And in that period of time, you have to get your estimates, have approval from the, in our case, it has to be approved by the Board of Selectmen and the school committee. And you have to sign all the affidavits. You have to get the attorney approval, et cetera, et cetera. So I sent a memo to to Tony Barletta that let's this fall get a head start on the process. The limiting characteristic is going to be what because I'm involved in construction in other ways. People in the construction business don't even want to give estimates anymore because the material costs are changing so fast. So my guess is I'm going to say, go high, just give me a number. And down the road we can fine tune it. Anyway, that's an important facility item. I know Mrs. Sherlock and I talked about moving forward in months previous, and so I want to carry that through. So what I will be doing is trying to get some estimates for the stripping, repairing any of the planking, the decking, and then re-roofing the gym to find out what the number is. Have Mr. Barletto and the attorneys draw up all the papers we need and all the permission. I have the paperwork from this year. Even though it's not the right paperwork for next year, I'm going to make the assumption that I can kind of use that as a formatting and move forward. And then the last thing I want to bring to your attention is that Ted Cronin and I today were out on the handicap ramp right in front of my office, because both of us noticed that there was an issue with it. And what's happening is the joists that run parallel to the ramp. So you have your boards across and you have long pressure treated timbers holding the decking on. 3 of those have collapsed. So what we did this morning is we actually took some decking off and we looked at it. What happened is there are metal hangers. They're called joist hangers. We ripped them off with our hands. They actually have rotted. So we put it back together. It's not in danger of collapsing or anything because the decking is holding it. But this summer, Vinny and I will get out there and I'll wear my old clothes one day and we'll take the decking off, we'll jack it up and we'll reinforce it and put it back together. So, and what we'll do is we won't do it when students are in the building and we'll just yellow tape the ramp in case it takes us a couple of days. I was astounded. I've never seen anything like I found there. I've been, those of you who know me know that I was a general contractor as far back as the 70s. I've never seen joist hangers rot away like this because they're galvanized steel or galvanized metal. And all 3 of them, I mean, literally, I peeled it away with my hand. Ted and I were just going, this is amazing. So we will fix it and we'll make it, I have a way of blocking it, making it even stronger than it was originally. But I want you to know that it's not dangerous as it is.
Well, we're lucky to have you and Ted and Vinny with all your expertise. I mean, to have someone who's, as a superintendent, who's also a contractor is really quite a feather in our cap. So thank you. And it's great to be able to reassure the community that in the meantime, we have a safe handicap entrance and exit to our school.
Yeah, the reason, Madam Chair, the reason we're going to do it is because we'll may wait months for a small job like this.
Yeah.
Because everybody's way over their heads in terms of contracting business.
And you know how, and it's safe and
Oh, yeah.
appropriate within your scope. So it's great. Thank you.
You're saving us a lot of money on consultancy fees, Tony.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
No, it's actually fun too. Get the
I think so.
get the hammering elbow back in shape.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. That's it for my report, Madam Chair.
Mr. Andrews, would you like to take the floor? Oh, you're on mute. You're just muted.
I'd be happy to, Madam Chair. Thank you for the opportunity. You should have received an email from me with notes from my report for this evening. And I'm looking at 2 different main areas, teaching and learning, and then upcoming events. This trimester, we are finishing up our iReady assessment. And so this week, teachers and students are implementing that 3rd assessment, which we found really helpful in terms of gauging student success and growth over the school year. And it'll be interesting to see this last one come out because it'll capture the whole year. The teachers are looking forward to using iReady again in the next school year. We find that we get data back more quickly than we do from the MCAS and from other assessments that we would use in the classroom. And it allows classes to compare one another to the progress, how it is over the whole school, and then individually. We had a professional development day last week, and we had a couple different programs running during that week, during that training. We went out to the forest playground and looked at the plants that are coming up, and Ms. Brandy and myself shared with teachers how we can use these plants in the classroom to educate students about life cycle, about smell, about color, and about a lot of different topics. It's nice when you can actually have a real thing to grab onto during a lesson, a hook, and also gives students an appreciation for their natural surroundings, and and get to recognize what they see when they're out at recess. We also reviewed the pathway to equitable recovery. This was put up by the DESE, and we'll be using it next year. And it's essentially a workbook for educators. There's an administrative version and a teacher version that talks about best practices and what to consider when we reopen in the fall with respect to academic milestones and how to ensure that all students are continuing to succeed following the pandemic. We wrapped up our MCAS last week. We have a couple students that are doing some makeup tests. The state has extended the deadline yet again because of the heat wave. However, we'll be done with our testing this week and be able to submit all the results. Again, we did all of ours online, and I think students are really quite comfortable with this. It seems to lower any anxiety around it, and it's an easy way to really schedule and follow through with it. And so we have a good team to implement it. So, and that was successful. A reminder to all the parents out there that we are offering before and after school programs in the fall. Still looking at staffing and hiring for those positions, but those programs should be up and running in the fall, before school and after school. And also just an update that desks won't need to be so far apart, as Superintendent Parentozzi mentioned. And this will allow us to go back to having a dedicated art classroom, music classroom, and other spaces, so that students can enjoy the full complement of the activities that you could typically do in an art classroom, where materials don't have to move from student to student or school classroom to classroom. In the area of events, I want to let you know that we are happy to announce that the PTO has brought back Scoops Night. That'll be this Thursday, June 10th. There'll be a pizza truck, and there'll also be a slush truck. And so come on out to the school on this Thursday, June 10th, for dinner and dessert. And then we have the other upcoming events that are happening at the school. June 16th is the 6th grade graduation and high school awards, this year being held at the Nahant Country Club, because we knew we could do it outside. However, there is not a limit now to outdoor gatherings. So we will have seating for all, and then we'll also have standing room for folks who want to join in the sides and rear of the gathering. June 17th is a sail car race at the wharf, 11 a.m., all invited. And the school closes for classes on June 18th with a flag lowering at 10 a.m. and dismissal at 11:30. And those are my major announcements, and I'm happy to take questions if there's any. Hearing none, I just want to say thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity.
I was just going to mention field day is next Tuesday, right?
Oh, yes, it is. Field day, in fact, is next Tuesday. That's right. Someone mentioned that
Right.
last time too.
I just want to say thank you, since this is our last school committee meeting while school is still in session this year. Thank you, Mr. Andrews, for stewarding us through such a extraordinary, difficult, and just wow kind of year, and keeping everybody safe, to the records that Mr. Parentozzi said earlier. It's really incredible. Thanks for keeping our kids safe.
It's definitely a whole community effort and a whole school effort, and I'm happy to be a part of it and lead as I can, but also take the leadership of others who are more knowledgeable in the areas that we need to think about this year.
The Johnson School staff, and administration has been unbelievable. It's wonderful. I'm so incredibly grateful and proud and grateful. It's been a great year. Thank you so much to everybody for all of the efforts that have been probably, I don't know how many 100 times more this year than in a typical year. So thank you.
It's our pleasure.
And it's great that we have some fun activities now at the end.
Yeah, every day is more normal, which is really wonderful.
Feels really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I echo the sentiments of everyone else. Thank you to you, Mr. Andrews, and the staff at the Johnson School. Our community is really lucky to, have the Johnson School and everything that it provided this year.
You really don't realize how important and special it is until you almost, don't have it, I think.
Mhm.
And I don't think I've heard so many students say, I can't wait to go to school, And we have that we're fortunate with that anyhow, but I feel like it means more this year.
So I'd like to now open it up to public comment. So this is the portion of the meeting where anybody that in the community that would like to share anything, please type your name into the chat function and remember to include your address so we can include it for the record. And while we're waiting to see if there's any public comment, did any members of the committee receive any correspondence that they'd like to share?
Not correspondence, but a question from a parent who asked if we were going to have before and after school in the fall, and Mr. Andrews just answered that.
I received an email expressing interest in programming regarding bike safety. And basically, the person who had communicated with me was kind of bringing this up as potentially a topic for the PTO to take on, but was open. They were kind of making a suggestion, not knowing really how to direct it, but kind of interested in encouraging a bike safety education program. And it just kind of sprung to my mind that Mr. Andrews and Shari Salamani had been already active in the Safe Routes to School program and had been doing work regarding signage for pollution and such things, but also looking at routes and bike safety. And so I humbly would have to admit that from my understanding, school committee is more, policy and budget, but this is something that, I would like to formally express my support of. I think it's a great idea. And however, we could be helpful on the school committee to, encouraging this programming or helping in any way, I'd be happy to help. I thought it was a great idea from a community member who was just happy to see so many kids biking around, but also kind of noticing that some kids might need a little bit more guidance about safety on the roads and the sidewalks.
Madam Chair, if I may take that one, absolutely. I really am interested in having what they call a bike rodeo. And Safe Routes to School does offer a class in this, and it has offered to come to the school. It's just more a matter of me getting in touch with folks and having them come out. I'd also like to get the Nahant Police Department involved because I think it's a good opportunity for them to connect with students and share with them about, bicycles are vehicles and need to treat them with respect and safety in mind. So I'd like to take that on and work ideally before the end of the school year, but now we're looking at days. So and we might be looking at the fall.
That's great. Thank you, Mr. Andrews.
Might be a nice kickoff program for the walk and bike to school in the fall, Sounds great. Any other school committee correspondence?
Madam Chair, on a related matter, I had a conversation with a member of SWIM today, and they are going to be going before the Board of Selectmen to discuss no idle zones in the community. And I did some research and forwarded them some information. The interesting thing I found out is I was always aware that there was a no idle zone around the school. I found out today that there's actually a state law in the books that excessive idling anywhere in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is prohibited and can be fined $100 for the first offense. I was not aware of that. So, and I found the law and I found an explanation of it, and a fact sheet. So I sent that to the individual.
Mm.
So we're going to be working in concert with one another to develop no idling zones in both in the community and perhaps expand the one around the school a bit. Excuse me.
Seeing no other comments in the chat function, we can move on to new business, Mr. Parentozzi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So in your packet, there's a sheet of paper labeled 8A, B, and C. These are typical actions taken by the school committee about this time of the year every year. The first one is to authorize the superintendent. Madam Chair, do you want me to read the entire thing to blast through it, or?
I think we can independently read it. I don't know if there's any, pertinent parts that you'd like to highlight. I don't know that you need to. Do you typically read through it at the beginning of the summer?
Yeah, basically it's to keep the business of running the district going in the summer. If school committee meetings are not held in a as tight of weekly, bi-weekly fashion. That's what 8A is about.
Mhm.
Are you interested in a motion at this time for 8A?
Sorry, I was just reading it there. So, oh, yeah. So it would be 3 separate motions, 8A and then 8B and 8C would be all separate, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, yeah. Is there any discussion about the outlined responsibilities in 8A for Mr. Parentozzi?
Well, quite standard from years prior, to authorize them to pay bills when we're not here to approve them in short order.
And then would we then approve them at just the next available meeting? Or what would happen?
I believe so, right, Mr. Parentozzi? Isn't that what we did in the past?
Yes, if action is required by the school committee, then it would be at the next meeting.
Okay,
Or a report, I would do a report with Chris and tell you what we've done.
okay,
Either one of those.
perfect.
The wrinkle this year is we're coming from COVID and returning to more normal. Last meeting we talked about how in person the invoices and bills got reviewed.
Signed, yeah.
So there's going to be a little shaking out period for members of the school committee because we've been doing this now for a year and a half.
Yeah.
And it's not typical. So we'll keep talking about it. But yes, my goal is to keep the school committee fully informed, as you can tell by the number of emails you get from me, so that you're comfortable with your fiscal responsibilities and others.
I'd be happy to make a motion to authorize the superintendent to act on the school committee's behalf as outlined in item 8A, authorization for summer months fiscal year 2022.
And I'd second that motion.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, by a show of hands? Ms. Sherlock, Ms. Paris, Ms. Anderson, Ms. Dam, and myself. So the next item number is 8B. Mr. Parentozzi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. 8B is a required action by the school committee to authorize the school district via the superintendent to accept federal entitlement and continuation grants, and also to establish separate grant accounts that may be expended by the school committee without further appropriation for the purpose in each grant. This is a catch-all that eliminates the need for the school committee to do motion after motion after motion, for Title I, for Title IX, for Title 4A, all of the ESSER grants, for example, this covers them. So you carefully look at the expenditure section of it, and you don't have to worry about it being organized for you.
I'm happy to make a motion to accept all federal entitlement and continuation grants and all state continuation grants awarded to the Nahant Public Schools during fiscal year 2022, and to authorize the establishment of separate grant accounts that may be expended by the school committee without further appropriation for the purposes designated in each grant proposal.
Thank you, Ms. Sherlock.
Thank you for writing that out.
And I'd be happy to second that.
Any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Ms. Karas, Ms. Anderson, Ms. Sherlock, Ms. Tam, and myself. Do you need more time, Michelle, or do you have it all? You muted. You got it. All right.
Paste.
All right. Mr. Parentozzi, do you want to discuss the participation in the school lunch and breakfast program?
Yes, as part of the school lunch and breakfast program, the requirement at the federal and state level is for the school committee to authorize a couple of different things. One is that we participate, and the second is that if we are offered community food distribution and we so choose, that you've authorized the district to accept it. That's often called, by slang, that's sometimes called the cheese law, where surplus cheese is distributed to a variety of state and federal agencies. This year, it's important for you to also detail that as of this moment, up until December 30th, 2021, all students in all public schools are eligible for free lunch without having to qualify for it. That is part of the federal COVID-19 response. Those of us who have been around for a while, we fervently believe that that will be extended till the end of the school year. And the reason is because there are in the school lunch program guidelines, it basically says anybody who gets school lunch on one day of a school year and is qualified for it gets it all year. So that's to make sure kids don't lose their free and reduced lunch in the middle of the school year. So we're pretty confident that the federal government is going to extend it to the end of next year. So this authorizes us to participate in that.
I'm happy to make a motion to participate in the National School Lunch and Breakfast Program and the Community Food Distribution Program in conformity with the requirements of the State Bureau of Nutrition Education and the School Food Services for the 2021 to 2022 school year.
And I'd be happy to second that.
Any discussion?
Just one question, if you don't mind. Now, in the past, I know that we were working with Liana Deloyd as our nutritionist to help us, develop our school lunch menu. Is she still involved with this now that we're on this is like a federally funded program with specific requirements? Is Liana still involved with the program?
Yes. This year, we were required by COVID guidelines to provide lunches that were contained.
Right.
The assumption is that in September, we will go back to the way we were doing school lunches, served to students in lines, eating in the cafeteria. So yes, she will be involved in returning us to a, a, a broader diet.
Great. That's fantastic. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor of passing the motion? Ms. Sherlock, Ms. Anderson, Ms. Karas, Ms. Tam, and myself. Thank you. So Mr. Parentozzi, that brings us to the strategic plan.
Yes. So, Madam Chair, as you and I have briefly discussed, I was musing one day and saying, I wonder how many of the members of the current school committee are familiar with the strategic plan, or may even have no knowledge that we have one. And the chair agreed that it was time to kind of refocus on it. So in your packet, you have the strategic plan that as of 2 and 3 and 4 years ago, what we typically did was on an annual basis, the chair and I would decide when it would be convenient for the school committee to review how we were doing in relation to the strategic plan. The school improvement plan is also linked to the strategic plan because the strategic plan establishes our overreaching goals, and then the school improvement plan, dives down into more finite action steps, etc. So as Mr. Andrews and I were talking about this, and I brought it up to the chair, it's my hope that the school committee would extend the date of the plan at least to August 2023 and possibly even to 2024. For the obvious reason that for the last year and a half, it's been fallow. It's been sitting with no attention being taken to it. So with the school committee's permission, my intention would be, it's very late in the school year, to do anything with it right now probably doesn't make a lot of sense. So early in next school year, for Mr. Andrews and I to go through the strategic plan and the school improvement plan, put a report together. And I think Mrs. Sherlock remembers the report takes the form that actually on the grid, we would put notes. We would say that the school administrator, the first one is support delivery of differentiated lessons in ELA and mathematics. We would put notes on it to see, where we are. Have we moved forward? Have we addressed this? Are we in process with it? Blah, blah, blah. And then to give us another year after next year to address it completely, unless the school committee wants a committee to form next year, which is okay with me. I can tell you that the concept of the strategic plan, if you look at who's on the committee, is really a community-wide activity. And I would think that we would want to give the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator and the finance committee significant notice, which leads me to believe that if we're going to be handling this internally in the first semester of next year, the time for the district committee to meet would be the fall of 22, because the spring of 22, the town officials are really focused on town business, getting ready for the town meeting. So that's where my head is.
One of the things that we had talked about is it will be helpful to know where we stand on each of the action items in order to get a gauge of how much extra time we actually need, whether it be another year or, maybe two.
Yeah, and I mean, the school committee can delay action. Obviously, this plan is good to August of 2022. But I think step one would be for Mr. Andrews and I to make a report to the school committee on where we are.
Mhm.
First semester next year. And then the school committee can determine. I do think, however, that trying to put this committee together in the spring semester of the 2022, January to town meeting, may limit participation by town officials. That would be my only qualifier.
I personally think it sounds pretty reasonable, understanding that, we always consider our improvement plans to be, to some extent living documents, and we're always in a constant process of assessing where our school is and improving, even if we're not specifically changing the strategic plan. So it's not like we'll be stagnant in the meantime. And from what I recall, there were some action items in the strategic plan that, as you're alluding to, we just haven't had a chance to dive into because we were diverted for a year and a half with COVID. Not for anyone who's listening, for all educators involved, of course, no education was sacrificed here. I don't mean to say it in that way. It's just certain initiatives we weren't able to pay so much attention to as we were focusing on other needs. But it seems reasonable enough, in my opinion, to plan to formulate a committee in the fall of 2022. And therefore that would lead us to 2023 at the earliest, if I understand correctly, to have a deadline for the end of this document.
Yeah, I think the best concrete example would be that when we devise the strategic plan, we have an action step of focusing on remote learning. My guess is we're way past where we intended to be because of necessity, and we have to, recalibrate what we wanted to use remote learning in the future for. When we wrote the plan, we had no idea we would be, from March of 2020 to June of 2020, we had no idea we would be remote learners. So that's one concrete example that, we're in a very different place than we thought we'd be. So we have to really think about where we're going.
And the school council that we've had in prior years, if I remember correctly, I hope I'm using the right term. There was always the strategic planning committee, and there was the school council who worked on making sure that the strategic plan was being implemented and kind of figure out who to best do work. Mr. Andrews, I think you were always involved with that as the principal. And would that still be active this coming school year? Despite the fact that we have this strategic plan that would be in the process of being reworked, how would we fit that in? Would we put that on hold as well?
Madam Chair, if I may, the school council and Mr. Andrews have met, and we brought you the school improvement plan
Mhm.
for 2021-22,
Oh,
which is aligned with the strategic plan.
but for this coming year, yeah.
Yes. The reason that we brought that forward is state law requires that. Whereas a strategic plan, although common sense and good planning and very important, there's a variety of ways that districts can address it. But the principal of a school and the school council must have a school improvement plan on an annual basis.
Okay, so that will still be, so I think that's great. That'll still be active this coming year.
Mhm. And Madam Chair, if I may add, we will also be following this. So it's a new school improvement plan that'll start in the fall. And so there won't be any stasis. We'll still be doing new things and looking forward. It's just a matter of, do we want to look forward now for 5 years, or do we want to wait a year before we look forward for another 5 years? I think.
I mean, I think it makes sense to delay the initiation of a new strategic planning committee. I guess what I'm struggling with is, how much time do we need to delay it by? And I think understanding where we stand on the goals of the strategic planning committee would help guide us in making that decision. So I don't know do we need to vote at tonight's meeting on timing of the new strategic planning committee? Mr. Parentazzi.
Madam Chair, I think that, in my opinion, it is not important this evening to determine A, if the school committee is going to extend the current strategic plan, nor if the school committee is, how long. I think the important thing to do this evening is to just recognize we have one, and for Mr. Andrews and I to state emphatically and put in the minutes that we will be coming to you with a report on this plan in the fall.
I think that sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we talked a couple weeks ago, I was unaware this existed, so it's helpful to rejuvenate it now that we can refocus on some of the core goals of the school. So the next thing we wanted to discuss was the meeting schedule for the 2021 to 22 school year. That would start with our summertime meetings. And I know that in the past, if the summer doesn't have as many pressing issues, that we have decided to meet once a month in the months of July and August. So I wanted to bring up that suggestion to the committee and hear what everybody's thoughts were on potentially meeting once a month. So in your packet, item 8E is our meeting schedule, and perhaps meeting once in the month of July and once in the month of August. Might make sense. I mean, we could always add on a meeting if there were important items that we needed to meet. And regarding as long as we gave ample notice per the open meeting laws. So I wanted to hear the committee's thoughts on moving forward with that change.
I think in the past, once a month is in non-COVID or non-pandemic, acute pandemic, I should say, settings has been sufficient. So now that we have a bit of a roadmap, it seems reasonable to me. But I don't know what other people think.
I think if we can, still manage our business with just the 2 meetings, one in July and one August, I would be in favor of that.
I would as well. My only concern with all the summer programs that we're so lucky to offer, would we need to meet more often?
My understanding is that we, but please correct me if I'm wrong, would be that we wouldn't necessarily need to. We've approved the programs, so it would be up to the administration to implement. But administration, please correct me if I'm wrong and if you need further support.
Madam Chair, through you, the July 13th meeting is important because Mass General Law allows us to spend fiscal 21 funds up until July 15th. So that's an important fiscal meeting. I also believe the August 24th meeting is important because that's getting ready for the beginning of our first non-pandemic school year in a while, and we'll have lots of details. But if the school committee wished to suspend the July 27th and August 10th meetings, I think that would not have an impact on the business of the school district.
And if the school committee felt that a meeting was indicated as time went on, as long as we have sufficient notice for open meeting law, we can always reinstitute one of those meetings. Is that right, Mr. Parentazzi?
Yes. The chair could direct me to post a meeting as long as there are 48 hours notice to the town clerk, not including weekends. So, a meeting on Monday has to be posted by Thursday. Saturday and Sunday don't count. But it's 48 hours. We can post a meeting at any time.
Sounds great.
So do we need a motion if we're going to strike the meeting dates from July 27th and August 10th?
I just want to mention that I'm away July 13th. So, obviously before recognizing the timing, I was hoping that that would be the meeting that we wouldn't need to have. But obviously you could hold the meeting without me. I would love to say that I'm going to call in from Hawaii, but I'm not. I'm just not. I like you guys a lot, but I'm just not going to do that. I think
Jealous.
I wouldn't even know what time you'd have to set your alarm.
I was sitting here trying to figure that out, and I decided it's just not going to happen.
If you're comfortable with it, Gina, I'm sure one of us could be.
Yeah, no, of course. I felt like it was important to mention. Any other discussion from the committee? I think that we would have to have a motion because it'll be altering the school committee meeting schedule. So it would be to alter the school committee meeting schedule for 2021 to 2022 to reflect no meeting on July 27th or August 10th.
I'd be happy to make a motion to alter the school committee meeting schedule for 2021 to 2022 to cancel the meeting on July 27th and August 10th.
And I'd like to second that motion.
Thank you. All in favor of passing the motion? Mr. Locke, Ms. Anderson, Ms. Karras, Ms. Dam, and myself. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I missed who spoke. Who forwarded the motion and then who seconded it?
Ms. Sherlock made the motion and Ms. Karras seconded it.
Thank you.
And I do have one question. Will we be able to meet in person?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Thank you. I think that's actually the next item of business, the open meeting law, as of June 15th. Good segue. So I know, Mr. Parentazzi, I know you've had some correspondence that you've included me on with the town administrator about the ability to have public access online to meetings since we could reconvene in person.
Yes, Madam Chair, I have. I've asked the question and have not received an answer. Um, First of all, at this present time, the open meeting waiver that allows us to have Zoom or other virtual meetings expires on June 15th, 2021, which means that our next school committee meeting would have to be in person. However, the governor has petitioned the legislators in both houses to extend that through the end of August 2021. I looked online today. There had been no action. They're all wrapped up in the budget, appropriately so. It would be nice to have a budget before the end of the fiscal year, for a change. But so I can't tell you if the meeting, your next meeting must be in person or not.
Mhm.
That's number one. Number two, my question was, does the town now have the technology for us to be on local access TV and also have people call into us from the community? Prior to COVID, we had never done that. If you wanted to speak with the school committee, you had to go to the meeting. Right now, I don't have an answer to that question. The second part of my question was, if we do have that capability, how do we get trained? So right now, I can't answer the question, but it gives you a sense of where we're going.
I have a question, and it might be totally stupid, but is there no ability to just have a computer available there so that kind of like on Zoom or Google Meets or however we decided to do it, so that the people in the meeting room, once we're in person, would be on video, and somebody would be sort of staffing the computer for anybody that would like to communicate in that way? Is that not hasn't been discussed or suggested in any way?
It would seem to me that I've said it often, and I'll say it many times in the future, technology is not my strength.
Yeah.
But it would seem to me that there would be no problem with having two systems in play at once, having the TV broadcast over local access and also having a Zoom meeting, with the exception of, does the Zoom meeting somehow interfere? I don't think so, but we could even use cell phones.
And in years past, when you've had in-person meetings, I know that the ability to be on CCTV and local access depends upon if you're, in the main, meeting hall in the town, in the town hall. Whereas I know that sometimes when there was multiple meetings going on, the school committee would end up in another room where there wasn't access to CCTV. But were most of the school committee meetings broadcast?
Yes.
Okay. All right. There just wasn't the opportunity to participate because it was just being broadcast. It wasn't shared.
That's right. It was one way, obviously, like
Like a regular TV.
like TV.
Yeah.
But I'm sure we can figure out a way that if you wanted either a call in or Zoom, or we do a Zoom, we turn all the cameras off, and we just have the audio, for example, because you don't need, you don't want two camera systems functioning. But again, I've asked the questions, and I will get the answers for you.
Do we know if we preemptively have the room available for our meetings if we were to start in-person meetings as of June 22nd?
We have the schedule that I posted, which is why I give it to the town clerk and the town administrator. with the exception that if the Board of Selectmen want to have a special meeting, they have priority.
Mhm.
I was told that, but not verified. So let me make sure that I say this has not been verified yet. The goal that the town administrator and I put forward when they went to the new video system was to have one of the rooms downstairs capable of being on local access TV. Now, the value of that isn't a live broadcast. The value of that is a rebroadcast. So, the Board of Selectmen kick us out of the hall. We go downstairs, we tape our meeting, and then we can show it at a prearranged time that's advertised, so people can watch it if they wish.
And just as you say, Mr. Parentazzi, I had also spoken when I was chair with the town administrator also about trying to, we had proposed having in-person meetings for school committee members who were comfortable with it, and having that like a combined in-person and Zoom, for people to participate from home. And it was deemed to be complicated from a technological standpoint. And so I had also made efforts to establish what you're asking for, and it wasn't possible at that time. So like Mr. Parentazzi said, maybe things have changed and technology is now available. People are more familiar with it at town hall either way, to make it more possible. But I know Mr. Tria had tried to help us with that too. And we had tried when he was on the committee, and we were trying to make that happen. So hopefully we can get some answers from town hall, and hopefully it is more feasible now, because it seems like the best model for community involvement and accessibility for people who may not be able to come.
Yeah, Madam Chair, if I may, I would, I recommend that we have Charles, our technology specialist, communicate with the people at town hall who speak that language, and and at the next meeting, I could make a report.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And so, as far as we know, the 22nd could be in person, and potentially not have access for community participation remotely. So we would, okay.
So be
That
going
is-
back to the old way, the established way.
That is correct.
Okay.
Madam Chair, if I could be so bold as to suggest, I would not expect a huge audience
No, right, fair.
at that
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah.
I think if
I mean,
there's
they have Wi-Fi. I guess I don't understand why I couldn't just bring my laptop down there and participate with Zoom, but like to get the community in, but
Tony Barletta had concerns. You could probably try talking to him directly
yeah,
too.
maybe, yeah.
Or
Or if you have those, I don't know if those communications were an email, just because I don't want to ask some, oh no, okay.
they were out loud. I had some trouble. It was a little bit more effective on the phone.
Okay.
So that might be the way to go. At that time, I think it was also a time in which town hall was pretty overwhelmed with trying to coordinate lots of meetings and doing it all remotely. And it was probably the worst of times to ask for what I was asking for. So things might be different now.
Okay. All right.
So if we're going June 22nd in person, we can assume that town hall will be available to us unless we hear otherwise. And
I will double check, but it should be, yes.
and then do we know that audiovisual equipment and someone to run it would be there?
That I don't know. I did
Ask.
ask, and I did copy the individual who had been working with our audiovisual.
Okay.
But I haven't heard anything back.
Okay. So we'll do our best for the community and encourage people to come in person if they're so inclined, and meeting minutes will be available as always.
Yeah, and
Right.
as it gets closer, if it is going to be in person, we can just make sure to advertise it a little bit extra so that people don't unexpectedly, show up to look for a Zoom link and it's not available. We'll just make sure to make that clear to the community. Mr. Parentozzi, would you like to move on to personnel matters?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd love to. As indicated before, we have posted our before-school program, lunch bunch, and our after-school program. I'm beginning to get a little concerned because no one has applied for any of those positions as of this time for September. Maybe it is simply because it's the end of the school year, but we will continue to ask our staff. Prior to the pandemic, we had lots of people involved and there was no issue getting staff members to work. I'm not sure if it's simply a thing of timing or if it's a lack of interest at this time. But I will keep you informed. The fourth grade position interviews are over. They finished late this afternoon. 6 interviews were offered. 4 people accepted the interviews from the committee. 2 were outside candidates, 2 were inside candidates. The checking of the qualifications, etc., from the successful candidate recommended by the interview team well, it hasn't begun yet. It'll begin tomorrow because the decision was made late today. So we will have a 4th grade teacher recommended by an interview team, and that person will hopefully accept a job once it's offered. We have a couple of the members of that committee here, Madam Chair, with us today, and through you, I'm not sure if I covered that adequately, or if the members of the interview team would like to say anything else.
You covered that perfectly, Tony.
You're too kind. Okay.
I concur.
Mr. Andrews, I think it would be, this question would be for you. What's the plan with the first grade and kindergarten teachers? I don't know if that specifically fits into personnel matters, but it's, juggling around staff.
Yeah. The second part of my report today addresses your question in a global sense. And I think you'll understand. Mass General Law requires the principal, with the approval of the superintendent, to communicate to all non-professional status teachers the decision of whether or not they have a position for the following school year in writing by June 15th at no later than June 15th. Typically, superintendents and principals do not early notice staff that are not going to be rehired because that can have a negative impact on the learning at the end of the school year. So that date is coming up very quickly. The decisions made vis-a-vis non-professional status teachers really impacts how the principal will set up the schedule, which classes, which teachers. The short thing is that we have 2 kindergarten teachers. If everything remained the same, and I'm not saying it is going to, 1 kindergarten teacher would stay with next year's kindergarten, and 1 kindergarten teacher would move to be one of 2 first grade teachers. Mr. Andrews and the teachers will determine that after the information is transmitted to the non-professional staff. So, for example, he'll have a conversation with the two kindergarten teachers about who would prefer to stay and who would prefer to move to first grade, and then he'll make that decision. I want to make it clear the teachers don't choose,
Mhm.
but it's important for them to feel part of the process. They should always feel part of the process, and that their opinions are respected, listened to, not necessarily end up the final decision by the principal. So, we have to go step by step. So that was a long way of me telling you
We don't
that
know
I
yet.
can't tell you
That's
who's
right.
going to be in kindergarten and who's going to be in first grade right now.
But there's not it's not a rehiring process for like a reallocation of staff assignments, is it? Is it like, do you hire a new first grade teacher? I guess, or you don't know yet.
We don't know.
Okay, I understand. All
On
right.
a theoretical basis, let's say you had two fifth grade teachers and two sixth grade teachers, and they were all non-professional status, and the principal decided that the two sixth grade teachers would not be rehired for the next year. Then you have to figure out what to do with the fifth grade. A fourth grade teacher could say, I want to teach sixth grade.
Mhm.
So that, there's a lot of moving parts.
And non-professional status means not tenured, basically.
Yeah, there is no
Okay.
such thing as tenure anymore.
Right.
It's called professional status
Okay.
and non-professional status. A professional status teacher is one that has taught 3 full consecutive years in one assignment while being fully licensed. So, for example, if Tony Parentazzi was a math teacher for 2 years and then became in a high school and then became a science teacher, the 2 years of math would not count towards professional status. It would count for my seniority and my steps, but it wouldn't count for professional status. And we have quite a few teachers now that are non-professional status. The short answer to your question about do you have to go through that whole, no, you don't have to go through the process,
Mhm.
but the principal has to determine, who's where and get their opinions. And if there are vacancies, how are they going to be filled? Our obligation is if there's any vacancies whatsoever, they get posted for 10 days,
Right.
even if he already knows what he's going to do.
As an outsider where this is my first go around, I didn't realize it was so complicated. So thank you for explaining that.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the explanation is more complicated than what actually happens.
Right, exactly. No, thank you.
You're welcome. So the other thing, and actually I had that on my list of things to talk about. So thank you for asking that question.
You're welcome.
I also wanted to mention that as of the end of next week, we will be celebrating the retirement of Debbie Cannell, which I know you know about after serving 5 years as Director of Special Education. And the staff will also be celebrating the retirement of Jude Shanahan because she resigned for the purpose of retirement in the middle of the year when in January when things were very different in
Mhm.
terms of social events.
Mhm.
So I did want you to know that those two events are coming up next week. And on your behalf, I'd be happy to extend your good wishes, gratitude, and thanks to them.
Thank you.
And if any of you want to do it in a different way, please feel free to.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I'll extend it right now, but then I'll do it separately too. Yeah, thank you very much to both of them. Extremely valued members of our community. That's for sure. Hope they both enjoy retirement very much. It's well deserved.
And Madam Chair, that's the end of my personnel report.
Thank you. I don't think that I have any business from the committee. I don't know if any other school committee members have any business to discuss tonight. I think we covered everything. Seeing no further comments, if I could request a motion to adjourn into executive session, not to reconvene into open session, to conduct a strategy session in preparation for negotiations with union personnel, to conduct a strategy session in preparation for contract negotiations and approval of the executive session minutes from May 25th.
I'll be happy to make the motion as outlined by our chair.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. So is Ms. Sherlock and Ms. Anderson.
And that
All in
motion
favor?
to enter into executive session is at 9:08 p.m.
Oh, sorry, thank you. All in favor? Unanimously? Thank you. We will adjourn into executive session. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Good night. All right, we are just a committee. Gina, did you enable the waiting room now? And I always forgot to stop recording, even though I never